Finding a way to end violent conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has been elusive for decades now. Many women are rising up in Israel as members and activists of Women Wage Peace, a grassroots movement with over hundreds of supporters from across the political spectrum. Jews and Arabs aiming to widen public support for a mutual, binding and non-violent accord, agreeable to both Israelis and Palestinians. Since 2014, Women Wage Peace have held a few large events and demonstrations with the participation of tens of thousands of citizens every year. Today, WWP has more than 40,000 members, 90% of whom are women. Ariella Giniger, a member of WWP's steering committee, believes the growing movement of Arab and Jewish women joining together can bring an end to violence.
Our goal is to reach a bilateral, honorable agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, while involving in the process women, according to the 1325 UN resolution, which in Israel was adopted as a law. We know that when women are involved, agreements are reached much faster and last longer. And we want women to be part of the process, which in Israel is usually led by men, ex-military people, and so on. What we do is really goes in two parallel roads. One is targeting the elected government, and the other one is towards the people in the country. We aim at being more and more people. We are a grassroots movement, so we're spread all over the country. We have more than 80 sections, and we really are, and we're a flat movement. So anybody who has a proposal can come up with it.
With women demonstrating their support on politicians to return to the negotiating table, the organization does not support any one particular solution to the conflict, sticking to no specific plan strategy.
Now, peace is not a one-point thing. Peace is a process. It happens slowly. You have to come, sit, and talk with open hearts and open hands and listen to the other side and come up with a mutual solution. You know, sitting in the 10 weeks outside the Knesset, people came up and talked about different solutions, really amazing. There were so many solutions, but it doesn't work like that. You have to come up with something mutual, because otherwise it won't last. It won't hold water. And that's why we don't want to stick to any solution. And we also believe that if you stick to one solution, then whoever is not for this specific solution won't join you. Now, we want all the people who want peace to join us. And people who want peace, you know, in Israel, it's a lot of the left wing, for instance, thinks that the biggest barrier to peace are the settlements on the West Bank. Now, maybe they're one of the barriers, but they want peace sometimes more than we living in Tel Aviv want peace. When you live on the West Bank, your life is in danger every day. So we don't want those people to be out, not be able to join the movement, because we want their voice. And if we have all the Israeli voices and are able to listen to the Palestinian voices, this is how the solution will come. And there is no one solution. Things change.
WWP has embarked upon their new annual campaign to advocate for the passing of a new law in the Knesset called Political Alternatives First. The bill would require the Security Cabinet to consider non-violent political options for resolving the conflict when the decision-making process first begins.
This year, we spread out to 5 big projects. The first one was a tent outside the Parliament of Israel. The parliament is called the Knesset, which was out there for the whole duration of the summer session. It was 10 weeks. 70-something days. We sat out there, and some of us were in the tent the whole time. People came from the whole country. A lot of members of Knesset came out to talk to us, and and a lot of people from all the country with ideas about peace and so on. The second big project was the Day of Peace. We had a march in Jerusalem. In between, once a week, we go into the Knesset. The members of Knesset know us. We sit in their meetings. We sit in the committees. We sit in the main platform, and they know us. They greet us, and we're on the map there. The largest, maybe another project we have this year is implementing a law. The bill is started after the controller who checked Operation Edge said that no political alternatives were weighed. We went into a very, very deep research, and we found out that ever since the War of 73, the Yom Kippur War, and it has nothing to do with the prime minister because there was a different party ruling at that time. Each time the controller checks something, no political alternatives are weighed. So what we suggest is to have a law that enforces the government and the cabinet, the security and political cabinet, to weigh political alternatives on a regular basis. Not only when there is a crisis, that in the law they have to allocate time to weigh political alternatives. We also have, as part of the bill is a suggestion of how it's going to be done. We have the Institute of, the National Security Institute, and there should be somebody who is in charge of also of political alternatives, not only of military alternatives. And also there is a section talking about informing the public. Of course, the public cannot be informed of every initiative of the government, but something has to be done so that the civil organizations also have a say. It's not all military. It's all the concept of security that in this country, security is always based on army, on military, on wars, on strength. And Women Wage Peace talk a lot about how security is also a political thing, is a way of thinking, is a way of mind, is wars don't make peace. Agreements make peace.
Women, youth, and dialogue are a recipe for peace in the Middle East. That's what WWP's Another Important Project showed at the International Congress in Tel Aviv on November 27th.
The last big project we had this year was in the International Congress, which was very, very special because it talked about the barriers to peace. It started a week before by a hackathon of 50 youngsters who sat for 24 hours and tried to come with ideas of how to deal with the barriers to peace. It was very, very moving to see those youngsters, Israelis and Arabs, Jews and Arabs, all Israelis, of course. This is an Israeli movement, I repeat that again, but it was a lot of Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish and religious people who really came up with different solutions that were amazing. The first prize is a website that will enable talks between Israelis and people abroad about whatever interests them, and in Arab countries, because in Israel we don't know enough people in the Gaza Strip, in Palestine, in Syria, in Egypt. So they built this website, And the second prize, which was very interesting, was the idea of having a ministry for peace. It's not only a ministry for war and security, a ministry for peace, that its goal and its aim is to really work on peace issues. And then we had the Congress, which was a really very moving event. It started by listening to people from abroad who had experience in solving issues. We had a few ambassadors from all kinds of places in the world who dealt with conflicts that were resolved. And there were a few sessions. I'll tell you about one which I was in. It was really very, very special. A psychiatrist led this session. There was a professional person who had his PhD on conflict resolution, and there were two other members there. One was Dr. Azadin Abu El-Esh, a doctor from the Gaza Strip who lost his 3 daughters and his niece in Operation Edge. And the other one was my very good friend, Sarah Rosenfeld, who was a religious settler in the West Bank. And she lost 2 of her sons. One was a pilot in the army who died in an accident. And the other one was killed by terrorists who shot him on the way home from a basketball game. And this psychiatrist brought these 2 people together, and they talked, and it was amazing how they talked the same language. And what was very, very moving was Professor Yovel's last sentence. He said, "Where a father and a mother are standing, 2 nations can stand." And they really talked about how revenge is not going to get them anywhere, but recognition and having the other side see you and recognize your right to exist as a person, as a country, as a town. That is the issue. And that was very, very important. We had, what was also very interesting, we had a few politicians also from the right and from the left, and 2 very important politicians, one a minister in the cabinet who is a right-wing leader, Tzachi Hanegbi, and on the other side, the leader of the opposition. They both endorsed our bill, and they both talked about how the bill is important and how they're going to support it.
It is important to create conditions that are conducive to peace, including reducing the language of hatred. All sides want peace.
Actually, one of the very interesting discussions in the Congress was a guy called Professor Iran Halperin. And he started his speech by saying, if you interview people with an ongoing conflict, each country will say, our conflict is special. Our conflict is not solvable. And we saw Ireland, we saw Kosovo, they were sure it's unsolvable. And he really brought a lot of parameters that show how similar the things are. And getting out of the position that we are special and it's unsolvable, that's a big step. Other barriers are not knowing the other side. There is very little contact with the other side. Now, this is really our idea, that people on the right and people on the left, this dichotomy in Israel of peace belonging to the left and Zionism or nationalism belonging to the right is ridiculous, because everybody in this country wants peace.